welcome back to the garden. So as I'm completing this series about garden tips and tricks, this is an important topic that I really wanted to talk about today, and it is about disease in your garden. So as a first-time gardener or a new gardener, wow, disease just is so discouraging. And the thing is, we don't even know that that is disease. Sometimes we just think that the plant is it's growing, or that's what happens to plants. And so there's so many forms of disease. I'm not going to go into the types of disease. That's for another video, or you can just search on YouTube. You should find someone who can break down the various types of disease and the ways to treat it, but also the way to see it. So today I'm just going to talk about roughly the disease in your garden, especially things that I myself have experienced. I'm talking from experience and mainly from this season. This summer has been really, really hot, and my garden struggled. By the grace of God, I still have a garden, but I really did struggle. And so the first thing that I noticed in my garden is that because of the heat wave, my plants were stressed. I was watering them in the morning, in the afternoons. So now the question was, perhaps my plants were not getting the water to the roots because it was so hot and the water was evaporating on that first section where the water soaks through. So it was the plants were not getting enough water. And then the second thing is that when you continuously watering your plants, you don't know, but the soil could be very soggy, and then that leads to a lot of disease. And then the third thing is you are watering your plants, but the evaporation rate is so high that your soil is just continuously dry. And then if you are growing in very sandy soil, there's no nutrients, and so the lack of nutrients and the dry soil, the soggy soil, the stressed plants, all of that makes it easy for insects to not just arrive in your garden, but to take advantage of the plants, because the plants are stressed already. So the plants don't have the nutrients to actually fight as insects start coming, because a healthy plant is quite able to ward off the insects and to fight, and even if it loses a few leaves here and there, it quickly replaces. But a stressed plant struggles, and so that's the problem that I've had, is stressed plants because of the heat wave. And then the next part of disease that came into my garden was powdery mildew, severe aphids, because now my plants were stressed. My tomato plants all had powdery mildew. My butternut, my pumpkin all had powdery mildew. The aphids were on everything. My beans had aphids, and aphids are quite specific to plants like your brassicas. However, for some reason, they were just everywhere. And so what I did, which is what I would recommend that you do, is I looked at how damaged my plants were, first point, and then I looked at how many plants were struggling. I looked at how close those plants were to each other. And what I found was that all my tomato plants, I had about 40 tomato plants, yes, all my tomato plants, no matter where they were on the property, because the heats were so extreme. And it's possible that that particular variety, I was growing Moneymaker and Roma tomatoes. So those varieties were probably just extra weakened by the heat. And so I uprooted all my tomato plants, because I'm thinking that if I cut off the damaged parts, the plants would be left so thin with so few leaves, and the disease is still there. And then I need to spray the plants down, and I'll be spraying forever, and I want to harvest, or I want to replace the plants with something else. And so that's what I did. I removed all my tomato plants. But here's the trick: when your plants are diseased, do not put the plants that you've removed, the diseased plants, into your compost. That must go into the fire, if you can make a fire, or into the bin for the refuse to take it. And so that's what I did. I uprooted all my tomato plants, and my heart was sore, because that was my goal, was to be able to make an abundance of pasta sauce and pizza sauce, and now I can't. So that's what happened. And so I removed the plants, and then the plants that were nearby, I just sprayed them. I made a mixture of a little bit of dishwasher, some drops of cooking oil, and I just boiled an onion, and I boiled some chili, and I made that whole mixture, and I sprayed the other plants, and they were actually fine. And I was glad when the tomatoes were gone, because I could just prepare fresh soil in new containers and have new plants coming into the garden and just allow for a healthier space. It is painful to remove your plants, but I would rather remove my plants and keep my garden clean and disease free and start some new plants than to keep them just because they're already so grown. Because my tomato plants were about over a meter tall, so it was a tough decision, but I just woke up in the morning and I just got done with it and I started again. I do have some tomato seeds growing from tray because it's much cooler now and I believe they'll do much better. And then the next thing is to monitor your plants every single day. Check under the leaves, check your soil, especially the top of the soil. Look at your produce, look at the stems, look for bugs, look for any patches so that you can do something about it sooner rather than later. And so disease in the garden is something that it happens because that's nature also. When plants are stressed, it's like us when we're sick, our whole immune system is down. So with the plants, it's the same thing. The immune system goes down, insects attack, the heat affects them, the cold affects them, the wind affects them, and then they struggle. And you have to make a decision. Are you going to keep the plants, try and resuscitate the plants, or are you going to let the plants go? Because it is a circle of life, and then start again with some new seedlings. So you can make that decision based on what type of plants it is, how many you have, where you are, and how serious the disease or the attack of insects is. If it's not too serious, you can try the remedies and you can isolate the plant while you nurse it back to health. Don't keep the plant in the garden with the rest of the produce. But if the disease is too far gone, take that loss. It's fine. And then you'd rather have healthy plants in a garden than sick plants that you're continuously nursing. And then at the end, they don't even give you a produce. They're unable to produce tomatoes. Before I forget, another thing that I struggled with because my tomato plants were so sick was blossom end rot. Every tomato that the plants were popping had blossom end rot. And if you don't know what that is, just Google it. But at the bottom part of the tomato, you will find that it's rotting. It's like a brown spot. It starts the brown spot, brown patch. It rots, and you're just not going to get a fresh tomato because it's rotting and it's so tiny. So you're just not going to get a fresh tomato. So I found that I kept plucking those rotten ones off, and then it was like, wait, I'm going to pluck all the tomatoes off because they're all coming out like that. And so that was another part of the reason in terms of why I just had to uproot my tomatoes and start again. And so yes, disease happens. Disease, it's part of nature, it's part of life, it's part of your garden cycle. The question is, what do you do about it, and how attentive are you in your garden to see these things and to see these changes and to see a sick plant in its early stages and to then do something about it and intervene and help the plant or remove the plant. So let me know what diseases you've encountered in your garden, how you overcame it, what did you do about it, and if you can also share what caused that disease, because that also helps me to understand certain things that are happening in my garden, because there are certain things that I see that I'm also not sure that is this plant sick or not, or is this part of this plant cycle. And so if you can share, then I can also use your information in my garden as much as I'm sharing with you. So until the next video, take care, happy gardening and happy growing. Bye.